It seems like it's been 40 weeks since you got 40 winks. Your back pain? Unbearable. Tossing, turning, trying to find that pain-free position. And that's the moment you realize you can't spend another waking moment putting off treatment.
The Joint and Spine Center is Cincinnati's leading destination for spine care, with a ton of surgical and non-surgical treatments for back pain. So when a moment has the power to change the rest of your life, go to the one place with the power to change it for the better, the Christ Hospital Health Network. This changes everything.
The Pound This Podcast is brought to you by the Christ Hospital Health Network. This is the Pound This Podcast, episode 729. Is it possible to stay consistent long term?
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This Podcast with Amanda Valentine.
What up, homies? Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This Podcast. I am Amanda Valentine. If you're new here, thank you so much for listening. Little backstory about me is I've been obese. More on top of that, just unhealthy mentally and physically for a good portion of my life. I'd say starting around 6 years old is around the time I remember being uncomfortable in my own body. And I spent over a decade yo-yo dieting. And over the past decade, I have worked on myself a lot. Mentally and physically. I've lost over 100 pounds. I've completely changed careers, and I am now a full-time health and fitness professional. My goodness. That's crazy. And I've been doing this podcast for almost exactly 4 years now, which is crazy. I'm coming up on my anniversary, which is pretty bitchin' if you ask me. And the topic I want to discuss today was asked of me on Instagram, actually by a couple different people in a couple different ways, which is it possible to stay consistent long term? Well, that is a loaded question, which, by the way, you are free to ask me questions anytime, or if you have a guest that you would like to hear, a topic. I've got some really great suggestions for some topics that I'm going to research and try to find some great guests to answer those questions. So you can always shoot me an email, amanda@amandavalentinebites.com, or you can find me on Instagram at You Can Pound This. I know it sounds like porn. I'm not a bot, but man, and again, this is just coming from my own personal opinion, my own personal experience through my own journey, and from the many, many, many people I have talked to in my health and wellness journey over the past decade, and now as a professional and clients that I have and things that I see of, is it possible to stay consistent long term? And I would say, yes, it is, with an asterisk on it saying, but it's not always going to be that way. Like long term, like I can look over the past decade and being like, obviously, yes, I was consistent and I stuck to a healthier lifestyle, and I've really kind of changed myself mentally and physically in a lot of ways and working on that. And I'm constantly a work in progress, and I enjoy that aspect of it. But not to say that there wasn't seasons, including full years like 2020, where it's like, a dumpster fire and you just feel like terrible and you feel inconsistent and you quote unquote fall off the wagon. And I think that once you get to the headspace, again, this is all my personal opinion, that once you get to the headspace of realizing like, yeah, it's going to suck a lot sometimes, but not all the time. And the consistency is coming from knowing that that's a season that you have to pass through. You know what I mean? Of like the moment that you're just kind of like, oh, well, I was eating healthier and I was exercising and I was meditating and I was doing these things and I was feeling real good. And now I'm, housing a whole tube of Toll House cookie dough every night and crying and not moving at all and laying on the couch or like, what happened to me? I'm such a failure. I'm such a piece of trash. Yeah, I've done that a lot over the past decade, and I realized, hey, man, this is a season. This is just, sometimes it's got to happen. It doesn't mean that this is the end now. I think before, when I was yo-yo dieting for a decade, it's be like, oh, I'm quote unquote doing so good, and now I'm quote unquote doing so bad. And then you would just kind of be like, well, screw it. I obviously don't really do good at sticking to the good thing, so I'm just going to keep on rolling the train of the bad thing until you finally just get fed up with it, and then you start the whole process all over again. And so I think that the difference for me now is realizing like that's just part of the process. Like it's not going to be like every single day feeling awesome. Like, you know what I mean? Of like, you think of watching a baseball game, not every hit's a home run. Like sometimes you're going to have some games that suck ass. I mean, the odds are there. Like, I mean, not that I'm a huge baseball fan or I know a damn thing about sports, but I know there's a butt ton of baseball games in a season, and you could still like go to the playoffs by losing a butt ton of those games and really sucking at some of those games. You know what I mean? But the thing is, it's just like, well, you win some, you lose some, and you just keep playing out that season. You know what I mean? Like you just keep playing. Like maybe you're going to have a losing streak and you're going to lose 10 games. And that doesn't mean that like, hey, I'm going to quit baseball now. Like let's shut the whole game down. Of like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe it's time to sit down and think and reevaluate of like, we're doing something that's not working here. Like what's not working, and really kind of dig and strategize and figure out what that is. And that part sucks. It sucks to be like that self-aware and really look at your demons. It's yucky. It's not fun. But I think when you do and you start working those out, then it just feels like a relief, because you're just like, okay, things are kind of working again. We're not so locked up. I'm not bullying myself. I'm not mad at myself. I don't feel this way that I don't like feeling, whatever that is. You know what I mean? Like it's different for every single person of the things that you like and you don't like about yourself, the things that you're willing to change and that you're not, and etc. So I think it's just having that mindset of knowing that you're not going to be consistent 100% of the time, you know, but the consistency comes in understanding that that's a season you're going to work through. And yeah, there's going to be times where you get back, quote unquote, on your game, or where you're feeling better, or you feel like you're getting on firing on all those cylinders that made you feel so good. And knowing that's on the other side of it, sometimes you just got to feel it out. You got to breathe through it. And sometimes it lasts a couple days, sometimes it lasts a couple weeks. And unfortunately, sometimes it lasts a couple months or a year. And that sucks ass, because you're just like, oh my God, well, it's all that time wasted. And I wanted to do this by this time. And I think that that's also a danger zone too, of just putting these harsh like goals of like 10 pounds in 1 month sort of thing, of like, if it's helpful for you and you realize that's helpful, then that is a good goal to set. As long as if you don't hit that goal, you're not terrorizing yourself. You know what I mean? So I think it's just knowing of like, hey, if you're feeling inconsistent and you're in a place where you don't like where you are, evaluate it and know that it's not forever unless you choose for it to be. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of circumstances that are out of our control, but there's a lot of things that are within our control in those bad circumstances. And there's a lot of choices that you can make. I mean, your choices may like, hey, this one sucks and this one sucks more. Which one are you going to choose? You know? And it feels like we're faced with a lot of those kind of decisions lately, of just like, one's not even a good choice. It's just like, which is the lesser of two evils? But it's still a choice, right? So I think that seeing that, maybe even feeling better of like, part of the consistency is knowing that there's waves and there's ups and downs, and that the consistency is that you just keep riding the wave, that you know that you're going to ride out the time that you're not feeling so great to get to the time where you feel better, and knowing that there's going to be another time where you feel like crap again, and then there's going to be another time where you feel really good again. And that's just kind of life, man. Like, unless somebody else is living a different life than I am. Again, I'm speaking from personal experience and the experiences that others have shared with me. And I don't know anybody that is just firing on all cylinders, home runs every single day. Like, it's inhuman. I don't think, and if you do that, like, it's, God, the pressure of that. And if you have an off day, like, it seems like it would just terrorize you mentally. At least that's how I feel about it. So I think that it is cultivating habits, and I think habits help with that day-to-day consistency of like, you're thinking of just like, hey, I want to make sure I get enough sleep every night. Like, if we just want to leave it to that one, that is something every single human needs, right? We all need good sleep to function better in life. So if we just made that the goal and be like, hey, some nights I got to stay up till 1 a.m. doing work. Some nights my kids are going to wake me up all night. Sometimes there's going to be a thunderstorm and it's going to keep me up, you know, or just whatever. Or sometimes I'm so stressed, I just can't sleep at all. Or sometimes I go to bed on time, but I still wake up at 3 a.m. for no damn reason. This is my life. And hell, man, like I still feel tired, but I can't sleep. And you're going to have those days, and they suck. But it's just like, but if you make it the habit, well, okay, well, maybe what did I eat the night before? Did I have too much caffeine that day? Or, especially if you're going on a streak of having like those bad kind of days. And are you reaching out to help of like, hey, I'm trying everything. I'm doing my melatonin. I'm wearing my blue light glasses. I'm staying off my phone before bed. I'm taking down my my caffeine intake, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. And you're like, and I still just can't sleep. And then that's when you reach out for help, right? And you're just kind of like, can I go see a doctor? Can I do a sleep study? Can I try some sort of like sleep meditation? And then the list goes on and on from there too, like breathe right strips or whatever those things are of like, okay, now I need to start searching for some tools to help me sleep because it's not good. Or you could just be like, well, whatever, this is my life. I guess I just don't get any sleep every night and I feel like crap every single day. Like that's a choice, right? And it does get frustrating to start doing some digging and doing experimenting. And yeah, you're probably going to spend more money than you want to buying the breathe right strips and the melatonin and, et cetera, there'll be blackout curtains and whatever. But it's like, but if you find the solution in there and it makes you feel better and you start sleeping a little bit better, then it was worth the time, right? So I think it's just kind of building those habits, searching for those things, and also knowing that everything that you try, even though it works for a while, doesn't mean that it's going to work forever. So you might try taking melatonin and it helps you sleep at night, but then it just stops working. And then, are you just going to stop there? Or are you going to try to find something else? And I think that's so true with especially, exercise and fitness and with nutrition of like, especially if you've done a million diets like I have and you're like, well, this worked for a while until it didn't. But then it was the answer for you for a minute for whatever reason. And it's looking at the reasons at why it worked and why it didn't. And then trying again. And it doesn't necessarily mean trying that exact thing again, of learning your lessons from it and trying something else. And I mean, I think that's just life. And as we age every single day, our worlds change around us, as we can see with COVID, like you're going to have to adapt and pivot and do things different way. And your mindset's going to change and your body's going to change. And you just kind of got to ride those waves with it. And that's the consistency, is I think making the choice to ride the wave, see it as a wave, even though when you're at the bottom of the wave, you don't want to, you're just like, it feels like there's never going to be any hope again. At least that's how I feel. Maybe that's a little dark, but whatever. When I'm in those bad moments, I ain't feeling too great. And when there's the high moments, you feel like, oh, this is going to keep lasting forever. It's going to be home run after home run. And then it's not. And then you get bummed out. And it's just like, I think once you just kind of step back and be like, it's all of it. And just be like, I can't live in the highs and I can't live in the lows all the time, and ride the wave. And I know this is a random reference, but if you've ever seen the movie Parenthood with like Steve Martin and who else is, there's so many famous people in the movie. Rick Moranis. There's a part at the end where Mary Steenburgen, I don't know, whatever, spoilers. This movie came out in the freaking 80s where she's pregnant and like Steve Martin is like not happy about it. And she's just talking about like how, grandma's in the scenes talking about how like life's a roller coaster. And he's seeing the roller coaster like he wants to like barf. He hates the ride. And she's just like loving the ride and having fun and putting her hands up, on the roller coaster. And I think that, it's just like, that's life. And I don't know, for me, it's just changing my mindset around how to see the roller coaster of, do I just want to like hate it? Do I want to get off, or do I want to enjoy the ride? Or maybe I get on a different ride if that one is too painful for me and find a different way to maneuver around it. I don't know if that's a good analogy. I am literally pulling this all out of my ass. I turn on the microphone and I just go, in case that is not blatantly obvious. You know what I mean? It's a good movie. You should watch it. They explain the analogy better in that movie. I'm not a screenwriter. Anywho, I hope this was helpful and I hope this answered your question. But I think the day-to-day consistency comes from creating those habits and making those choices and making those little promises to yourself and sticking to them. And I love the quote, whoever said it, probably a billion different people, including me now, that confidence comes from keeping promises to yourself. So when you promise yourself, I'm going to get a better night's sleep, I am going to drink more water today, I am going to, eat more foods that fuel me, I want to move my body in ways that make me feel good. And you kind of keep to those promises, whether it's 1 or 5 or whatever it is, then it builds a confidence of like, yeah, well, I can do this and I feel good and I'm going to keep this going. So I think that's the day-to-day consistency. And again, some days are going to be completely out the window by circumstances you can't control. And maybe sometimes circumstances you can, whatever. And just know like, well, okay, well, that's just a day or that's just a season and we keep moving on. And I think that's where the overall long-term consistency comes in, at least for me. Like if you took me back 10 years ago at this time, 10 years ago, I had not made my resolution yet to just make the best decision possible in every moment, which I did New Year's of 2012, which got me where I am now. I was in a really, really dark place. And the only thing I was really consistent was binge eating by myself and binge drinking with my friends and hating myself for a lot of reasons and hating my life. And to be like, this is where I'm at now. I'm literally having this conversation, giving advice that was, asked of me on this topic. I'd be like, I'm not the person to ask that to. Are you serious? But here I am 10 years later of living a life that I have chose consistency, even though I've had ups and downs, been all over the place and, bad days, bad weeks, bad years, that I'm still here in a healthy place and really enjoying the process still, even those low points. And that's the consistency, is I'm here recording this podcast right now. I'm talking to you about this. Like, this is something that I care deeply about. And so, yeah, I am consistent, even with all of those falls and stumbles and bad seasons. Like, I'm still choosing this life for myself because it makes me feel good mentally and physically. And it's personally, I feel like it's changed my life for the better. So when I reflect on that during the times where I feel inconsistent, it's like, this is why I'm doing this. You know what I mean? Of having that why, that reminder why of like, I enjoy it. Life is a little bit brighter, and I feel good showing up in life when I feel like I can move my body better, when I can just hop up off the floor and stand up and I'm like, and heaving myself off the floor. Like, it makes me feel better to feel more mobile. It makes me feel better when I'm more hydrated. I feel more like awake. I feel more energized. These are all things that I didn't even know I could feel before I started making these choices for myself. And now that I know that I can feel that way with these choices, it makes me want to stay consistent with them. Because when I fall off, I feel so different. Like, it's just my whole mindset changes, my body changes, and it doesn't serve my life in the way that I want it to. I feel more lethargic. I feel so much more sorry for myself. I just don't feel like I'm living the life that I want to. And I feel like that's the end goal for me is, health and wellness, mentally and physically. Working on that leads me to the life I want to live, because we're not here very long and tomorrow isn't promised. So am I showing up for myself in the ways that I really want to live my life? And that helps me keep me more consistent. So that's my answer to that question. Hope that's helpful. Again, any questions, you can always write to me, Amanda@AmandaValentineBites.com. And also, I do want to say, as far as like tools go and reaching out for help, and I know I've mentioned it a lot, especially in the past couple months here, is my friend Sarah with Team Fit With Me. Again, somebody that can help teach you tools. So it's like, if you want to know more about nutrition, especially she deals with a lot of like, hormonal issues and gut issues, and you're having problems with that, and you would like to learn some tools to work through that, whether your goal is to lose weight, just to feel better in your own skin, to gain muscle, you want to know more about exercise. She's got a whole team. So if there is, a good resource outside of myself, obviously I'm available if you ever have any questions, or I can help in any way. Somebody like that is great too. And you can find Sarah, the discount is 10% off month one of all packages is teamfitwithme.com/pound this, which you'll find in the show notes. So I do want to mention that too. And any resource that you need, let me know. I mean, I've talked to so many amazing people over the past 4 years just doing this podcast alone. And if there's something that you feel like, hey, I'm struggling with this, do you know anybody? Can you recommend somebody? I love doing that. I love meeting so many amazing people and then just, helping connect people with the right people that can really help them. So you can always reach out to me and ask me about that. But anywho, thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it. And I'll catch you later.
AmandaValentineBites.com